Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film. In today's episode, we're going to be rejoined by Shifter writer-director Jacob Burns and producer Zachary Burns to discuss the greatest time travel movie ever made. What time travel films are our personal picks, the one to rule them all? After this very essential discussion, we'll also talk about the latest news on Shifter. Spoilers. Shifter might be the greatest one you've never seen.
What?
Jacob and Zach, if you guys give us really quickly, for listeners tuning in for the first time, what is Shifter? Where can they find it and when?
Shifter is a time travel horror movie.
What?
It's about a young woman who she builds a time machine in her barn and experiments on herself, and things go wrong very, very quickly, and she suffers some painful and gruesome side effects. So, check it out. It's gonna be distributed by the Horror Collective, which is an awesome distributor.
Super cool dudes.
And it's gonna be released on August 6th to a multitude of VOD and digital platforms.
Fantastic. Digital platforms it's a great way to watch movies in the year 2020. You know,
It's the only way.
It's the only way.
Yeah, literally.
All right. So I think I might have bypassed. I got in such an excitement to talk about Shifter. I might have bypassed proper introductions. Jacob and Zachary Burns are co-founders of the Cinematropolis. Jacob Burns, of course, as I said, the writer, director, producer of Shifter, also Electric Nostalgia, also Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Number of nifty little IMDb credits you got going on there. Jacob Burns, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Left Eye Burns, Zachary Burns, you are the producer on Shifter, Electric Nostalgia, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, Home Sweet Home, a number of other films. Your IMDb page is just stacking up, my man. So welcome back to the Cinematic Schematic.
Thanks, dude.
It's a real pleasure to have real human interaction in today's day. And it makes me really think about if only we could jump into a time machine,
Right?
and go back to January and just fix things.
All those years ago.
All those years ago. It was at least 10 years ago. The before times,
Yes.
as we now call them.
Oh, yes.
Indeed.
Oh, man.
So I thought, since we can actually do that, or can we, that you know of, let's vicariously relive this experience by discussing our favorite time travel movies ever made. But before we do, a couple of different housekeeping tips about this topic. Time travel is a very broad genre. In fact, it's so broad there are many subgenres of time travel films. So I think I want to establish a couple things. One, we are really the real key rule is a person, consciousness, or thing needs to time travel in the movie. So what I mean is, yes, that means Terminator 1 and 2 do qualify as time travel films, even though they are largely set in one time period, but time travel is required for that in order to initiate that plot. That does exclude, however, I just want to clarify, really when thinking about time travel, that also includes time loop movies. And what are time loop movies? That is Groundhog Day. That is Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. Movies I love, by the way. That would also include the recent Hulu release Palm Springs, which I loved. One of the best movies I've seen this year.
great.
Very good.
Unfortunately, I'm like, I don't know. Let's just to simplify things. Let's set that out. Maybe we'll have to have a whole other episode about greatest Groundhog Day style time loop movies.
Yeah.
Because there's so many fun ones out there. I mean, you got Happy Death Day 1, you got Happy Death Day 2. I think there was a Happy Death Day 3 coming. Those darn kids just can't get out of that loop.
I know, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Outside of that, gentlemen, is there any clarifiers or questions you have about those rules? Anything you want to add just for the audience so that we know? So everyone knows when we say time travel film, what is it we mean?
I think I mostly agree with you. I think it can be pretty broad as long as a character, like you said, or a consciousness travels either forward or backward in time, and then that's kind of a larger overall point of the story of that happening. Then I think that's a time travel movie. I don't know. I made Shifter, so I feel like the rules are very loose.
Yeah.
Did you play by your own rules? We need to clarify.
There are we purposefully avoided a lot of the rules of time travel, other than a character travels forward and backward in time.
Yes.
That actually takes me to my first real question here.
Uh-oh.
So let's let the audience know a little bit about us and our experience with time travel.
Yeah.
I have long been a big fan of time travel as a plot device, both
Mhm.
in television and film and video games. Zelda Ocarina of Time, one of my favorite video games ever made. Pretty much any time travel. You put time travel in any movie, I will literally sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
Even if it's terrible, I'll watch
Absolutely.
it just
Oh,
because
yeah.
I'm intrigued. Because
Absolutely.
sometimes really bad movies actually deploy time travel in really fascinating ways.
Yeah, totally.
sure.
We'll talk about some of those later in the show as well. Lost, one of my favorite shows, features time travel. Spoilers.
You like Lost?
No. It's
Okay.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's an
I
abusive
didn't think
relationship.
so. You
I
don't
wish-
seem like a Lost
I wish you would
guy.
bring it up more often.
I know. At least every time we'd mention time travel. So time travel. Favorite subgenre of sci-fi, probably. Followed closely by alternate realities, which again is linked with time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subgenre. So our preferences on time travel films. Jacob, like when you think about a great time travel movie, what is it about that movie that sticks out to you in the way it deploys the plot device or idea of time travel?
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, like really, it's like you said, if it's time travel, it's already got a lot of points counting towards it. Like it's just an intriguing concept to begin with. But what I really love and respect is when movies kind of use the rules and ideas and the tropes and things that we've seen in a lot of other time travel movies. If they kind of use our knowledge of those against us, I really love that. And I really love anytime they can surprise us. And I hesitate to go much further because the movies I have chosen all follow these rules. But yeah, anytime it can you get caught up in the characters and the story, and then it can surprise me somehow. I don't know where it's going. That's always very, very exciting.
All right. So we're more about the surprise element. Zachary, how about you?
Well, definitely all those things Jacob just said are all really good things about time travel movies. But even those I don't know. I also really like the I just like time travel movies. I don't know. Like I don't think terribly hard about it. And I guess, maybe those are maybe the kinds of time travel movies that I gravitate towards more are the ones that don't get super bogged down in the rules
Yeah.
of the time travel, because time travel is a completely made up thing.
What?
I'm sorry, what?
There's science? Science fiction.
Wow.
Zachary, science fiction. That means that there's science in there.
Some science.
Right? Yeah. That means it's hard, cold fact. But yeah, so I think sometimes time travel movies can get bogged down in trying to explain themselves and how it all works in their
Yeah.
universe, which can be fun to get into, kind of that nitty gritty thought experiment stuff.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it can just get in the way of having a good time and telling a good story. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers anybody's questions, but that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, you made a great note there about the way it's deployed, because I actually agree. One thing I want to mention, I have this is so weird. I have like two modes of time travel. I either want the movie to be about trying to explain it, or I want it to just be like, here's the rules, don't think about it.
Yeah.
Like I think about Looper.
Yeah.
I think about Looper. We're gonna talk about a bunch of these movies. We might or might not talk about some of these movies on this list, but I'm throwing Looper out there as an example.
So do you know what's gonna happen? You done all this already? As me?
I don't want to talk about time travel shit. Because if we start talking about it, then we're going to be here all day talking about it, making diagrams with straws. It doesn't
When I
matter.
hurt myself, it changes your body. This is what I do now, change your memory.
Doesn't matter!
As much as I love movies that are actually about like the time travel mechanics and like kind of the paradoxical nature of it often, that's kind of thing I gravitate towards, is the paradoxical nature of time
Yeah, for
travel.
sure.
You're like, I can do this thing. Well, can you do the thing? And I think
Yeah.
the ones that I think are the most interesting is when I can do the thing, but not in the way I thought I could do it. Like there's like a lot of different time travel theories. Again, they are all actual theories. I don't actually believe in time travel, guys. So there's no science to back it up as an actual thing. It's all theoretical. But like there's string theory, where you're looking at saying, hey, whatever happened. This if a thing occurred, if you time travel in the past, you always time traveled in the past, and you can't. That means you've always done it. So the future, like the past is your future. So it's already happened. I don't know. See, that's what I'm saying. Like when you really start thinking about it,
time is fixed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Kind of
fixed.
theory.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about the theory of relativity, well, the past is your future, but that means you've already done it. You just haven't done it yet, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I love talking about that. I love geeking out about it, but it doesn't actually lead to anything productive. I just think the conundrum of people trying to figure that out is a really fun,
Absolutely.
fun, I would say, story. Or could be. So I like those movies that get really in the weeds about it. But at the end of the day, I think really the ones that most people are going to remember, the ones that I think are the best movies on the whole, are the ones where they lay out the rules and they just say, here's the rules, don't sweat it. Just roll with
Yeah,
it.
just go
Yeah.
with it.
Because if you ask too many questions, it's just not going to be fun anymore.
Yeah.
Take Back to the Future, for example. Now, I don't think this made any of our lists because I think we all agreed before when playing this podcast that it's the perfect time travel movie.
Yeah, it is perfect.
Yeah.
And also, if you start questioning it, it immediately falls apart, like
Yeah.
almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still one
But
of
like any time travel movie, of course it will.
Yeah.
and but it is one of, I would still say, one of the best movies. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's at least in that time
Yeah.
travel subgenre, like it is at least for the mainstream. Like it's got everything. It's got romance. It's got comedy. It figures out. I love like kind of the way it compares and contrasts cultures in the
Yeah.
1980s and then 1950s. And if you go to Back to the Future Part 2, 2015, which was nothing like our actual 2015, which makes me really want us to make another. We got to remake Back to the Future Part 2,
There we
guys.
go.
Yeah.
I think something that's interesting about time travel movies, and I know we'll get into some of these later, but that I feel like they can, what's the word? They don't get dated as much as other movies because the date is like a part of it. Like Back to the Future is a very 80s movie,
Yeah.
but
That's part of it.
it has
Yeah.
to be
It-
and that's because then you contrast the 80s and the 50s, like it makes that more obvious. If they had like toned down the 80s aspect and tried to make it more like, you know, this could take place at any time or whatever,
Yeah.
that would lessen the whole 50s aspect. And I feel like that's true of a lot of other time travel movies as well, that like I feel like they actually might have a longer lifespan of people, you know, being able to watch it without going, haha, look at the weird things they're wearing. But
Yeah.
that's like part of it is like the fact that they're in different time periods. I think that's kind of an interesting
Yeah, that's a good point.
thing that time travel can do.
I think you're onto something there about the most timeless movies are the ones that are kind of set in that time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the best time travel movies, especially if they're playing with hard dates that are tied to our reality in some way, really tell us a lot more about the time frame that it was made in than like the time frame that they're going to, right?
Yeah.
Like Back to the Future isn't really part one isn't really about the 50s. It's really about the 80s and how in the 80s they looked at the 50s and how silly the 50s looked in comparison. And then of course Back to the Future Part 2 is where they thought everything was going, and especially now that we're in 2020, we're 5 years past the date, we're like, not only were they way off, they all the thing, it was like the super 80s, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I think, how in the best time travel movies, a lot of times they'll get the ideas of where we're heading right, but the way they realize the technology is wonky.
And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's interesting that time travel movies, there really weren't that many until like the 80s. Like really before that, there was a Time Machine with Rod Taylor that came out in like the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
There's things like Planet of the Apes, which you could maybe consider. And then really not much. There's probably more out there than I realize. And then you've got like the Star Trek movies in the 70s and some other things. But it feels like it's not until the 80s that time travel really picks up, because you've got Terminator and Back to the Future. And then I'm going blank now. But yeah, it just seems like starting then, that's when kind of there was this huge surge for time travel movies, and we're still kind of feeling it. I don't know. Just an interesting thought. I wonder why they waited. Wonder why it took so long for it to kind of catch on for people.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder if one thing, and I am not, I know people in my life who I might bring on for another podcast who have actually studied nostalgia culture.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been somewhat inherent, but I do know that in the 80s, there was a lot of nostalgia for the 50s from that generation who grew up in the 50s, like, that were like grown parents, maybe even having grandkids in the 80s, were nostalgic for the times of the 50s.
Yeah.
And before that was like World War II and World War I. So like, you know what I mean? Like the pop culture hadn't really evolved. Like the 50s is really kind of where we see pop culture in a lot of ways become like more crystallized. Again, this is just me as a higher educated on the entire evolution of pop culture, but I do know that there is something to. They look back on the 50s and there was a lot of nostalgia for it. And like, what if we could time travel back in time and live through that again?
Yeah.
And we're still experiencing that today. I mean, gosh, we see that. X-Men Days of Future Past, the X-Men movie. We get a little bit of that in Avengers Endgame, and except for that's really interesting because it's more nostalgic about the last 10 years you just experienced. And
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of time travel. I do think that, and I don't think it's the key, but I do think, Jacob, I would love to kind of read more into like what is going on in the cultural zeitgeist related to like looking back on the past fondly and remembering how great it was, like the good old days sort of thing, and how that might be some way connected to, you know, the increase of time travel films. But of course, also because we live in a Western capitalist society, you get a big box office hit like Terminator or Back to the Future, and all of a sudden everyone's going to have their time travel movie, and then it turns into a subgenre, you know? So
exactly.
I think there's a lot of things going on there, but I think that is a really, really astute observation about like, when did this become a thing that we just love to do?
Yeah.
Okay, one more time. So, listeners, now that you have a better understanding of exactly where we're all coming from with time travel movies, here's how we're going to take this next section. So, we each have 3 movies picked. We have 2 runners-up, and then we have the greatest time travel movie ever made, at least our argument for it. And then we will follow up with our favorite bad time travel movie, and then we'll close out by doing some honorable mentions. With that said, you better buckle up. We're going up to 88 miles per hour, Marty. So let's dive right in.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Let's go to our first runner-up pick. So again, we're each going to say our pick. We're going to make a case for why it's the greatest, and then we will have to discuss amongst ourselves whether we agree or disagree. So, Zachary Burns, we're actually going to kick the first runner-up to you.
Yikes.
Don't screw this up.
Yeah, no promises. Prefacing all of my picks for everyone listening to this, I purposefully kind of sought out time travel movies that I don't think people talk about a lot, just to get more eyes on those movies because I think they're really fun or really cool. So just heads up, some of these picks might be things you guys aren't aware of, but they're great and you should watch them.
Such a hipster.
Yeah, I know. I'm always that guy. But so first runner up is, I am going to say the original Planet of the Apes movie from 1968. Which that movie rules.
Talk about a timely time travel movie. 1968 was a really crazy year in the American history. Now we're talking about cultural context there. They blew it up.
You maniacs! You blew it up! Oh, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
They did. They did.
Damn them all.
Damn them all. But yeah, Planet of the Apes is actually, it's not one that people really, I think, normally think of as a time travel movie, because it's not a giant element of the movie, and you don't even realize that it is much of an element of the movie until the very end, which is, that ending is an iconic ending.
Pretty good.
Mind-blowing.
Even if you haven't seen the movie, I'm positive that you guys know what the ending of that movie is, because it's just, everybody knows how the end of that movie.
Just remember in Mad Men, and they're an episode where they Don Draper and his son watch Planet of the Apes and they see the ending.
It's amazing. But yeah, and I believe as the story goes, Rod Serling, Twilight Zone master, is the person who came up with that ending for the movie.
Amazing.
Because of course he did, because he's Rod Serling and he can think of amazing things like that. I just think that movie is super great. Charlton Heston, if you don't know the plot of this movie, Charlton Heston and a couple other astronauts are sent on a mission from Earth to basically just like explore this distant thing that they found, and they don't know what they're going to find there. And then so they kind of crash land on this planet, and hey, it's a planet full of apes.
Damn dirty apes.
Yeah, damn dirty apes that are they're intelligent apes. They talk. They have their own society.
You mean people? You're talking about people.
No, I'm actually talking about apes.
What?
Yeah, pretty weird, right?
Huh.
And so yeah, the apes are in charge of this planet, and there are people, but people are
And
they're
they're in
more
charge.
like no, actually, the people aren't in charge. The
What?
people are more like our apes now, as they are all mute. They don't have organizations or governments or anything. They're just
No, that's like
like
us
these-
now.
oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
I just was gonna say, is this a time travel movie in the sense that it's going to happen in the future? Like we're on track there,
Right. Basically, yeah. So yeah, and not to spoil a 45-year-old movie.
With like one of the most iconic endings to any
yeah.
sci-fi movie ever made. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it basically comes to find out it's literally like the last 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
We find out that Charlton Heston is actually on Earth the whole time. What? He had just, unbeknownst to him, traveled like 2,000 years into the future. And how he learns this is he discovers the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand, with just the head and the hand with the torch sticking out. That reveals the truth that he was on Earth the whole entire time.
What?
And just throughout those 2,000 years while he was gone, apes got smart and took over. People got dumb. And there you go.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Prophetic, one could argue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think the thing I really like about this, Zach, this is a great pick. I like this because, again, it utilizes time travel to underscore some really interesting things. And I know the themes might not be, most exciting thing, but it's like, hey, at the end of the day, humans are stuck with our mistakes, right? Like at the end of the day, like he does all the things to escape. He tries to get out, but at the end of the day, like the human condition was inevitable and he's stuck living with it. And now at the end of the movie, he's just stuck on the planet. In the
Yeah.
future, he can't get, like, there's no way home, really. Like, he's just stuck.
Yeah. It's because he is home.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
His home's ruined
yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
stuck in it. He's like, so yeah, I just think that's, it's a nice monkey's paw twist. Where
They're
He-
apes, not monkeys.
Oh, damn. Damn dirty puns. That's not a pun, but whatever. Yeah, so I think that it again, though, it utilizes a theme there that, he gets what he wants. He gets to go home because he realizes he never left. And he's then stuck with it.
Yeah.
Bummer.
It's a really delightful movie.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I'd also like to point out that the third Planet of the Apes movie,
Yes.
Escape from Planet of the Apes, is also a time travel movie.
Is more upfront a time travel movie.
And it is amazing.
It is great.
It is.
Honestly, just watch all of the Planet of the Apes
Yeah, they're all
movies,
amazing.
and I'm including the newer trilogy that
Yeah.
also came out a few years ago. That actually also works within the original timeline.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all great. But yeah, so the first one and the third one, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, definitely have time travel elements. Especially the third one more specifically.
Yeah.
I won't spoil that one. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's just so fun.
Yeah, if you don't know and you watch the movie the first time, the opening moments are pretty great.
They're great. They're great. Unfortunately, you'll for context sake, you'll have to watch the second one, which is the
Yeah.
weakest Apes movie of all of the Apes movies. But just watch it for the context. There's still some fun stuff in
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
But get yourself to that third one because buddy, it's a fun one.
That sophomore slump is always a tough one. I do want to, so just to clarify it on a couple things. One, the original Planet of the Apes run, was it 5 movies?
5 movies, yes.
5 movies. Okay. So watch those 5 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Then definitely skip the Tim Burton one from 2001, 2002.
Yeah,
With Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, it's got some great ape makeup.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it looks great.
Like really great.
The score, I still listen to the score regularly.
The score is really
really
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Danny Elfman, who
Oh,
always does a great job.
Always, yeah.
So yeah, the ape makeup and the score is great, but the movie itself is not the best.
I just, seeing Mark Wahlberg, Michael Clark Duncan, Helen Bohem Carter in that makeup might be worth it. I think Tim Roth's in there too, right?
Yeah.
Tim Roth is the main kind of bad ape.
Yeah.
And like
There's a lot of
there's
fun stuff.
there's good stuff. in
Okay,
there.
I might have undersold
like,
it a little bit.
Like it might be worth checking out.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of good stuff in there. But yeah, maybe as a movie as a whole, it doesn't quite all come together.
Yeah.
All right.
But
All right.
there's good stuff in there.
Okay, and of course, the last time too, there is actually that recent trilogy that starts with the
Rise
of the Planet of the Apes,
Yeah.
James Franco, and then we
Yep.
get the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, Dawn is incredible.
Dawn's
Love it.
awesome. And
And
then
then-
we get War for the Planet of the Apes, which is
Yeah.
basically like the 10 Commandments, but with apes movies, where Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, is essentially Moses taking his
Yeah.
people to the promised land.
Basically.
Holy cow, how did that movie get made? And wow, I'm so disappointed more people didn't see it because it
Right.
is so
man,
good.
it's so good. And that, like, specifically with that last one, like for a movie in today, being made today, like Andy Serkis as an ape and all of his ape buddies,
Yeah.
in War for the Planet of the Apes, like they're legit the main characters.
Yeah.
We barely spend any time with the human characters in that movie. I think Dawn, it's kind of half and half.
Yeah.
And the movie before that, Rise, is primarily we're hanging out with James Franco, and little baby Andy Serkis as Caesar the ape as he's growing up. But yeah, that last one, War for the Planet of the Apes, like it's legit. Like the apes are the main characters, and we're hanging out with them for basically the entire movie, and it's really good.
Yeah, highly recommend all three of those. But yes, original pick, 1968, Planet of the Apes. I'm not going to argue with that, Zach. I guess I can give that a pass for runner-up number one. But Jacob, you got to make sure yours meets that match there. So matches that.
It's also Planet of the Apes. No.
Oh wait,
Does that match?
that was actually mine was Planet of the Apes too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All three of my picks
Okay,
are
cool.
Planet of the
Yeah.
Apes. Yeah.
That checks out.
So my first pick is a little movie. Came out a few years ago. Called Time Crimes.
Ooh, Time Crimes.
yeah.
Okay.
So Time Crimes. I actually hesitate to get too much into the plot because that's part of the fun. And since it's a more recent movie, you should definitely go watch it. But essentially, a guy, he's at home. His wife has just left to go to the store or something like that.
Yeah.
And this movie pretty much jumps straight in to what it is. There's very, very little setup. So this guy, he's left at home, and he sees something weird. He's like looking through his binoculars, and he sees something weird happening, and he goes to explore. And how do you explain it? Things go very wrong
it
very
goes
quickly.
off from there, yeah.
It's a movie that really, really plays with kind of like, oh man, what would you call it? It just really, really has fun with the constant, like, seeing things from different perspectives, like seeing the same scene from a different perspective, and they just do it over and over again because things just kind of keep looping and twisting and coming back around on themselves. And sometimes we'll come back to a scene like 3 or 4 times. Like, it's insane. And just seeing this poor guy, he basically makes one kind of mistake early on, and that mistake just keeps compounding, and he keeps trying to fix it, and then just more mistakes and just more things go wrong. And yeah, it just keeps going, and then has a great ending, of course. But yeah, so it's kind of a time travel like thriller. I don't think it ever quite goes to like horror necessarily, but it's more like thrilling. But it's definitely like it can be really funny. It is a little tense sometimes. It can be very tragic and sad. It just really encompasses a lot of emotions and feelings with kind of just this kind of a snowball effect of time travel. How one little thing can kind of just keep rolling and rolling down the hill and get bigger and bigger.
So it kind of sounds like Rashomon with time travel, at least from the premise. But it sounds like it get kind of, you said the multiple perspectives. Would you say it differs from that for listeners who might not be familiar?
Yeah, it's not quite Rashomon necessarily, but essentially, without getting too spoiler, a character, the lead character will kind of see himself doing something from afar, and then eventually he will catch up with that time that he saw earlier and do that thing, and we see why he did that thing.
Yeah.
And it makes sense at that point. And there's just a ton of things like that that are just like there's a ton of like just really great setup and payoff where like they'll set up something where you're like, well, that was just weird. What was that? And then 20 minutes later, we'll come back to that moment and it will make total sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great thing about time travel films is the way they use context.
Yeah.
And they get the relativity and context just to like, lots of surprises. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, why is that character like blowing up a building, or why is this character beating his head against the wall to do something, or why are they putting a cat in a basket and leaving it right on this curve? It doesn't make any sense. This character would have no reason to do that. And then, an hour later or whatever, you're like, what? That checks out. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that requires really clever and thoughtful writing too. The way I'm sure there's
absolutely.
like a lot of like, anytime you're doing time travel films like that, these things have to line up in some way. I'm sure there's lots of very interesting diagrams, that you make.
Yeah. I can't imagine making this movie. I can't imagine writing it, for one thing, because I know even on Shifter, where the time travel was kind of wasn't necessarily the forefront as much as in Time Crimes, like it was such a struggle. Like I constantly had to go back in the script and look at it and be like, wait, what was she doing there? What was going on? And then, so I can't imagine on something like Time Crimes, where basically every single scene is basically a reference to an earlier point in the movie. Like, man, I can't imagine what that screenwriting process was like, and then just like shooting it just for continuity and all that.
Continuity has to be a nightmare on that stuff.
Yeah,
It has
yeah.
to be perfect.
Yeah.
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 It had to be so complex putting that movie together.
Yeah.
But
it
man,
works.
they pulled it off.
It works.
So did you build any diagrams when you were writing Shifter, or did you just kind of write it and made it kind of like rewrote it?
Not necessarily diagrams. Like it was more of just like I kind of tried to come up with the basic rules of what was happening, and then tried to like live within those rules. And then I just kind of generally kept track of what was going on, but it kind of, it kind of goes off the rails as we go. But it was definitely, again, nowhere near as complex a timeline as Time Crimes. It was
God,
definitely,
honestly.
no joke. Yeah, it was definitely something we had to think a lot about. And then going back to the continuity thing on set, that was definitely a major thing to consider every time we went to shoot one of those scenes. We had to really pay attention to what the heck we were doing.
You're holding it in the left hand in that shot. You got to make sure it's in the left hand this direction towards the camera. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. My pick, runner-up, rather.
Yeah.
The first
Lay it
runner-up.
on us.
Man, this is tough because I feel like to even mention this kind of sort of spoils the movie a little bit, but I got to do it because if this is a show about the greatest time travel movies, we got to talk about the greatest time travel movies.
Yeah.
And if it's there, we got to talk about it. So,
If they don't like it, they can time travel
yeah, just rewind.
before you said it.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't want to be spoiled, you just hit that little forward 30 seconds button.
Yeah.
And there you go.
There you
Very
go.
good. You time traveled.
Exactly, right through that podcast player, but make sure not to do it through the ads. We need the ad revenue. So
we need those guys.
my pick, runner up, number one, is going to be an anime called Your Name.
The day a star fell, it was almost like
seeing something out of a dream. Nothing more or less than a breathtaking view.
Now, like Zach, I was really tempted to put Terminator 2 on my picks, and I didn't. I didn't for a couple of reasons. The biggest one being that while I think it is probably one of the best movies that utilizes time travel at all made, I think I don't really go to it for the time travel, right? So in my mind, when I think about time travel, Your Name utilizes time travel in a more interesting way than Terminator 2. That's not to say that Terminator 2 isn't a better movie, though I actually think there's some debate there because Your Name's pretty freaking amazing. So this is an anime that came out in, I believe, 2016 in the States. So I think it was like the spring of 2016.
One of those.
And it's Makoto Shinkai, I believe. He recently released Weathering with You. If you remember the Before Times, it was one of the last movies I saw. I saw in January, I think. Anyway, so this is his film, and here's the thing. God, I'm spoiling this so hard. It's a body swap movie.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's a body swap movie, and it's really clever because you don't realize it's a time travel movie until halfway through the movie. And and like once you discover it's a time travel movie, it fundamentally changes what's going
Amazing.
on.
God.
It's
so good.
It's such a good reveal.
it's well, yeah, I guess I will say this. I will at the very least not spoil the reveal for how the character, how one of the characters that is figures out it's a time travel, like that there's time travel involved.
Yeah.
I won't reveal that, but let me just say it's fantastic. And it was like one of those, you're watching it again, body swap. You're like, okay, weird body swap sci-fi. You have a teenage boy in the city kid, seems like a middle-class family, versus a girl who grows up in the countryside, very simple life, a lot of spirituality involved, all that stuff. And basically they inexplicably start swapping places every day. Like when they go to sleep, they wake up in their body, vice versa, and they find out what the other person did in their body, and they actually are able to communicate through like notes and stuff they leave each other. It's great. It's sweet. It's adorable. It's fun and cute. I know it's a body swap movie, which is a weird, people think that's kind of a weird subgenre. They have a lot of fun with it. But the real thing, that's the charming part. The time travel is the mind-blowing part, though.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to spoil anything that happens after the reveal or what the reveal is. But needless to say, you find out that there's a huge time travel element, and only one of the characters finds out about it. And basically, the rest of the movie is him figuring out how to reconnect with this person.
Yeah.
So I really like it because at the end of the day, time travel is a plot device deployed to kind of show how closely our lives are intertwined, even though we all live very far apart. I really love how it shows how much more in common we have than differences. People, even though they live wildly different lives and have different perspectives, they can both kind of walk in each other's shoes. While at the same time, while they realize what's similar, they also realize what's different and really grow as humans. And then, of course, that leads to a beautiful romantic subplot, and time is keeping them apart. And we're not sure. And then when you're watching, you're like, how the heck are they going to figure this out? Like, you're watching, like, there's no way. And I'm not saying there's any sort of science or even plot logic that makes it work perfectly. But, man, God, I love that movie.
It's so good.
That movie is incredible.
I just remember we saw it in the theater. This thing happens, and the theater was just, like, silent. And this guy behind us just went, oh, brutal.
And he was right.
Yeah,
he's dead on.
It's so good. It's amazing how that movie, it's so like laugh out loud funny, and then tears running down your cheek, sad and tragic, and
but also beautiful.
But beautiful and like oh God.
But also how it gets your adrenaline rushing because like you get so involved in the characters in the story.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely one of those things, again, you think you kind of have an idea of where it's going a little bit in the first half. And then when you find out, again, time travel element, you're like, where's this going? I genuinely don't know where it's going or how they're going to solve whatever this thing is. Like, I don't know what's going on. But it's an adventure. And there were multiple times where I was like, oh my God, maybe he or she's not going to make it. Oh my God. And you just like, you're really just like right there in the movie. Again, just.
So good.
It's so good. I'm just gonna have to leave this and immediately watch it again, as soon as I get home.
Incredible use of suspense.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love that movie.
So that's called Your Name. It's anime. The dub will suffice, but the sub's better. I will also say this movie has one hell of a soundtrack. I love it. I listen to it from time to time still. So again, Your Name, worth your time. Let's get rolling with runner-up number 2. We'll actually go counterclockwise around our table. So we'll be turning it over to Jacob Burns. What is your next runner-up?
I hope you're ready.
So my next runner-up is a little film called Looper.
What? Yep. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Is that like Vine? Were you looping videos and stuff? You guys remember Vine?
Nope.
Rest in peace, Vine.
So Looper takes kind of a crime angle to time travel that I like.
Like time crimes?
Yes. Well, different.
Wait. Are there? Hold on. Before you tell me any more.
Yeah.
Are there loops involved in any way?
There's some looping. Yeah.
But not Groundhog Day.
Not Groundhog Day looping.
Okay. All right.
Gotcha.
So Looper is about a gentleman played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is what is called a looper, right?
Oh.
And so he works with some sort of mafia-type organization. So time travel exists, but it's been outlawed. So the only people that use it are bad people. And the way it's used by these bad people is it's how they dispose of bodies in the future. So they'll send whoever they want disposed of back in time to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he will then dispose of them in our time. So future bad guys don't get caught. No one finds the body. This person just goes missing. And what happens is eventually he ends up. Is it okay to spoil this aspect?
Yeah. I would say this is in the premise. It's in the trailer. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a thing in the looper biz called closing the loop, and he is sent one of his victims that he is supposed to dispose of. That's sent back is himself from the future.
What?
And he hesitates, and future himself escapes. It's interesting to note that future himself is played by Bruce Willis.
Ah, shit.
Right? And thus,
yay.
yeah, exactly. And thus, the excitement and thrilling adventure known as the film Looper goes on from there.
Boy, does it.
And yeah, there's whole other. It's kind of an interesting time travel movie in that it brings in, just as Your Name brought in like body swapping, Looper brings in its own kind of a different. It layers on top of that another sci-fi concept, which is kind of, I guess, telekinesis, essentially.
Yeah.
That's part of the plot. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why Future himself has come back is to deal with this whole telekinesis aspect. And so it becomes kind of a Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is now chasing. He's on the run from his own organization because he screwed up by not disposing of Bruce Willis, and he's also after Bruce Willis so he can close his loop and hopefully get back into good standing with his with the organization he's a part of. So yeah, it's a really great kind of sci-fi action / crime film. It was directed by Rian Johnson, who later did another sci-fi movie. Kind of something small. What was it called?
Yeah, I think it was that indie one, right?
Yeah.
Was it the guys with the laser swords?
yeah.
And,
Last Jedi? Was that it?
Was that?
the
something
Star
like that.
Wars. Oh, Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it was one of those Star Wars.
Oh,
movies.
okay. Yeah, gotcha.
The one that was universally beloved by.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, the writer-director of a movie that was generally pretty beloved, Knives Out.
Yes.
Just came out recently.
It's true. No time travel on that one, unfortunately. So that one
Unfortunately
did not
not.
make the
That
list.
we know.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe it's revealed in the sequel.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What if it's set, the Looper and Knives Out are set in the same universe? Like, we're going to build up to it, you know?
I mean, I'm into it.
I'm now going to start behaving with the assumption that all Rian Johnson movies are in the same universe.
Yes.
So
I think that makes sense.
Bricks
Looper,
in there.
Knives
Brick.
Out, Brick, Star
Brothers
Wars: The Last Jedi, Brothers Bloom, all same universe.
Oh, yeah, the Last Jedi is in there, too.
Yeah, it's in there too.
Well,
all
it's in a-
Ryan Johnson movies.
It's a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away.
Exactly, so it fits.
Yeah, exactly. And what's his name? His friend's name? Noah Sagan. Is that his name, right? Who's
Yeah.
in, who's
Yeah,
in all of his
Sagan,
movies.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
same character. I mean, like the character just progresses in each film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That makes
There's
sense.
a lot of twins.
There's an arc.
Yeah.
I see it. I never thought about that way. So we need to step through a portal in time to go tell Rian Johnson to write that in to his scripts.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm sure he will
Yeah.
love it.
I'm sure he's probably listening to this right now.
I'm sure, yeah.
Ryan Johnson's a huge fan. Cinematic schematic.
Oh,
yeah, I'm sure.
Ryan, answer my 35 emails I've sent you. I want us to talk. Okay. Great pick. Zachary Burns, throw it to you. What is your next runner-up?
My next runner-up is just the most delightful film, Time After Time.
Yeah.
Time after time.
Yeah. This movie, if you haven't seen it, which I assume you probably haven't, it's
But after you hear this plot,
you're gonna want to see it immediately. This movie is great. Okay, so the basic plot is H.G. Wells.
Okay, I'm in.
Yeah, you're pretty much on board already.
oh, just wait.
But basically, okay, so H.G. Wells invents a time machine. back in like 18 whatever.
Yeah, he didn't just write a book about
He
it.
didn't just write a book about it. He lived it.
Yeah.
So H.G. Wells built a time machine in 18 whatever. But also around this time, there's this dude called Jack the Ripper running around murdering ladies. And no one can figure out who this guy is. And they're like, what? This sucks. This Jack the Ripper guy is just killing everybody. So jump ahead a little bit. Basically, Jack the Ripper steals or uses H.G. Wells' time machine to go into the future.
No way.
And H.G. Wells follows him through time to track him down.
What?
And it's great. So it's
Guys, sign me up.
yeah. So it's one of those where it's a kind of fish out of water time travel story where people from the past travel to modern day, which at the time was like 1979. So he travels to 1979 New York.
Amazing.
And it's incredible just trying to hunt down Jack the Ripper in modern New York. And it's, oh, guys, it's so much fun.
It's so good.
Malcolm McDowell is H.G. Wells. David Warner is Jack the Ripper. And my girl, Mary Steenburgen,
Yeah.
plays the love interest of, she's a woman of the modern era who meets up with H.G. Wells and helps him out to track down Jack the Ripper. And guys, this movie is so good.
Amazing.
Why aren't we all just watching this movie right now?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know, guys.
The best part, and I'll just spoil the best part, is he talks about a restaurant he goes to, and he's telling Mary Steenburgen about this. He went to the Scottish place, McDonald's.
Guys, it's great. This movie is so good. Oh man, it's great.
Big Mac, please.
And it's great because it's like we got the fun fish out of water stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's also like thrilling and kind of scary because we're tracking down Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Who of course
Solving one of the greatest questions in human history.
Exactly. Now we know who Jack the Ripper was. It was David Warner. I
knew it.
I knew it. But yeah, it's great. And you know, because Jack the Ripper, he doesn't just show up and stop killing people. He actually shows up and continues to kill people.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a stretch, guys, and it's only because I recently listened to a podcast where they talked about they covered Zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
Is Jack the Ripper and Zodiac the same killer? We never figured out who identity was either way. Maybe it's the same guy.
That's true.
How do we
Maybe
know?
it is.
Do we know it's not?
Maybe it is. Maybe he actually did travel through time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why the Zodiac stopped. It's because he traveled further.
Oh.
Traveled somewhere else.
Yeah.
He hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe
We
he
haven't-
just went back in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I like that pick greatly because I like it because it utilizes history in a way we haven't really talked about, because I think most of our picks are all very fictionalized, even though they're based in reality. We're not really talking about real history. And you know, the thing I'm going to mention here is it's really funny for a kind of the notion of time travel. I feel like is often associated with the question, what if you could go back in time and kill Hitler? Well, you know what? We haven't really had any good movies try. Has there been a movie they actually did that really well? I would love to see that in a movie if they actually did it in a clever, smart way.
There was a Twilight Zone
Oh, yeah.
revival in like the early aughts, and there was an episode
There was,
where I
yeah.
believe a woman was sent back to kill
Hitler as a baby.
Hitler as a baby, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I can't remember the plot exactly, but yeah, that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
There was a television show starring James Franco, based on
Yeah.
a Stephen King novel,
yeah.
11/22/63, that went into what if you could stop the assassination of JFK.
Yeah.
So that was not like a home run. I honestly think it could have been a movie and been fine. Like they stretched it out for several episodes, and it was fun. But and I do recommend it actually. It's
Yeah.
again, it's not great. Not every episode's a winner, but I kind of like that because that is in recent memory one of the pieces of fiction I've read that in a more interesting way explored that question. What if you could go back in actual human history and stop X thing from happening?
Yeah.
Because it's funny because I know we always talk about hypotheticals, but yeah, Twilight Zone, like that's a really, I feel like that's a deep cut. You would think by now we would have had like some big blockbuster movie about it or something. Maybe it's because
Yeah.
it's too real. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's I feel like we always have that conversation. What if I could go back in time and kill Hitler or stop this extremely awful murderous person from doing murderous things like Jack the Ripper, for example?
Yeah. Interesting.
Just a tangent. I'm just throwing it out there. Like I don't
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
I don't feel like that's been really realized on the
Yeah.
big screen. Not even sure it should be. Although Nazis are weirdly relevant again in the year 2019, 2020. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't remind me.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
exactly why the movie doesn't get made. It's too, it's
Yeah,
too
yeah,
real.
yeah.
Too
That's
real.
probably
It's
why,
too real,
yeah. Interestingly, Time After Time, though, it was directed by
Nicholas Meyer,
Nicholas Meyer,
my dude.
who was very known for.
Lots of stuff, but most prominently probably Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. He wrote and directed that movie, which is, of course, one of the greatest Star Trek movies and just movies in general of all time.
Yeah.
It's real good.
It's pretty great. It's pretty not to be confused with Star Trek Into Darkness. I sometimes get them confused when you look up the plot.
Never heard of it.
No.
No, yeah, what is that?
It's
I'm
sad.
not familiar with that.
Yes, Wrath of Khan.
Another fun thing about Time After Time is I mentioned earlier it stars Mary Steenburgen, who is, of course, always a delight. But she, of course, was in another time travel movie called Back to the Future Part 3, where she, again, plays the love interest of the time traveler.
Wow.
Which is just funny. I don't know. It's just interesting that she got that role twice.
Yeah.
And she knocks it out of the park both times.
Should have brought her back for Shifter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sometimes you get a type. I gotta start asking questions about her life partners now. I don't know, but no. I think that's a good pick. I love that. I love the rare occasion that we really utilize real history with time travel. I think, especially in film, I think is really great. So, Zach, thanks for making that recommendation. Time After Time.
Yeah.
All right, so my second runner-up. So I've already kind of talked about Your Name, and that really, when I laid out my cards on the table, I said I like two forms of time travel story. One that's like, here are the rules, don't worry too much about it, just roll and enjoy the story, because if you think too hard about it, it's going to fall apart. The other one I like is when you get really into the mechanics of time travel, and oftentimes it produces what's called a mindfuck. I know strong language, but that is actually what they call it.
Yeah.
That is actually an
It's
internet
a
term.
Technical term, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
In science circles.
Yes, technical term. And so one movie that did this really well that basically no one saw, and again, I am pulling at movies that I want people to see that I think are great, is Predestination, starring Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook. And it is, I'm not saying it's a great movie, but I will say I redboxed that sucker 3 times in 2 weeks.
Nice.
That's a lot of red boxing.
It's a lot, back when Redbox was like the
Yeah.
easiest way to get movies, like newer releases before Netflix and or streaming services everywhere. Because I think I didn't even check the year. I want to say this is like 2014, 2015, somewhere in that ballpark. So long story short, you're basically following the two characters, Sarah Snook and Ethan Hawke, around, and they keep running into each other. She's trying to like stop this assassination thing. She's trying to stop this big killer guy. Honestly, there's a lot of, not too much overlap, but there is some similarities between Looper and Predestination in the sense that she's trying to stop this really bad thing from happening, right?
Yeah.
And her and Ethan Hawke keep crossing paths. There's a couple other characters that show up, a lot of character actors. I can't remember their names on time, but like they're like faces. If you're a watcher of HBO like myself, you're like, oh, it's that guy and that woman. Yeah. The thing I really like about this is, yes, several mindfucks. It really gets into, they don't like sit around explaining time travel, but they do a number of things, kind of like you mentioned with Time Crimes earlier, like where you'll see things happen, you're like, what was that about?
Yeah.
And then later it really doesn't make any sense at all. But when you see it later, it's still strange, but you're like, I get why this person's doing this thing. And it ends in again, really gets into the paradoxical nature of like when you really try to get into the intricacies of like what time travel means and what the implications are. So yes, it definitely ends with a twist. I'll just say that. And a really interesting twist. Again, I just want people to check it out. It's an interesting sci-fi film. you will be if you're like me, you'll be laying in bed thinking through, like, trying to connect all the dots, because there's so many dots to connect. There's like lots of little things. There's characters who show up and you don't really like, they serve a very specific function, and you're like, are they time travelers, or is it just coincidence? A lot of that. There is time travel involved. There's no doubt about it. But there's a number of things going on where you're not totally sure. They leave a lot of like those happenstance, circumstantial things sort of ambiguous, so that you're left to kind of really wrestle. Again, I wouldn't even say if it's like with the philosophical notions or anything. It's more about like just trying to connect the logic dots in a really fun way. And I do think there is a thing in there too about the acceptance of self and like learning how to accept you for who you are, flaws and all, and how not doing that can oftentimes be destructive. So,
Nice.
Sounds good. And this is great because I have not seen that movie.
Yeah.
So now I know to check it out.
Check it out. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's great, but I think you will be curious, and I think you'll be thinking about it, and you'll want to talk about it with somebody.
So you're saying it's great.
I thought it was great.
Great.
Perfect.
It's not good, but it's great.
I'll take it.
I'll take it. All right. So we have reached the point in the show where we have each gone over our runner-ups. Now, now's the point where we're really going to make the case here. Greatest time travel movie ever made.
Yikes.
This is a big one. All right. No sweat. Now we've already ruled Back to the Future out because it's just,
To be fair, it probably is the greatest time travel movie.
I mean, yeah, let's just be honest.
It's in that conversation.
Really is.
Yeah.
Well, the greatest time travel movie other than Shifter, of course, which no one has seen yet,
Yeah.
but once they see it, they may agree. It's the greatest time
You'll
travel
have to
film
see
ever.
You'll have to see it.
Available video on demand August 4th.
August 6th.
It could be the greatest time travel movie no one's ever seen that is available video on demand on August 6th. So I don't know. Listeners will have to check out the movie to find out.
We'll have to time travel to August 6th.
Yeah.
To know.
You gotta be careful with that though, because sometimes when you time travel, especially Marty McFly style, things get a lot worse when you go to the future. So you gotta be careful. Jacob, what is your pick? Greatest time travel film ever made?
Ever made.
No pressure.
Wow. I don't know. No, it's 12 Monkeys.
Monkeys.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. 12 Monkeys, the Terry Gilliam film from the mid-90s. Not sure exactly the date.
Yeah.
Oh, it's another Bruce Willis film.
95.
Oh, look at that.
Interesting.
You got a theme. You got a theme going.
Yeah.
You bastard. Take all the Bruce Willis is in a lot of good time travel stuff, guys.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, it's his thing. 12 Monkeys. I'm not even sure how to describe what this movie is or what it's about. Essentially, Bruce Willis he's a prisoner in the future, correct?
Yes.
And
We believe he's a prisoner in the future.
he is a
Right,
person from the future.
He's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, this movie changes what it is like 30 times. It's amazing.
Like every scene.
But he is sent back in time to they basically have this program of sending these prisoners back to try to stop or figure out. Basically, there was this big virus or something that wiped out. Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
Stop.
Now, suddenly it's really relevant.
They send people back in time to try to identify the source of a global pandemic.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, yeah. That's
Interesting.
Starting to feel very real all of a sudden.
I hadn't thought about that until this exact moment.
Yeah, me either.
Okay, cool. Right
Interesting.
on. Let's keep talking.
Yeah. So yeah, they're trying to find the source of this great pandemic that wiped out a large portion of humanity, and many of them fail. Man, how do you describe this movie?
I literally don't know how to describe it beyond that.
That's the setup.
Yeah.
And
but that's really like the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
There's so much more.
So much more happens, and it's just one of those films that it really it just does a great job. It pulls all the time travel tropes that you know and just performs them the execution is just so perfect. And there's surprises, there's things, there's so many like twists and turns. Amazing performance by Brad Pitt.
Incredible.
Rising performance.
Like,
yeah.
It is. I mean, Brad Pitt, finally just won an Oscar once upon a time in Hollywood. this is, I think, if not his best performance, at least top 3.
Yeah.
He's amazing in this film.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And it's
And
totally
so
not
unhinged.
Yeah, and definitely not your typical Brad Pitt role. Like he.
Well, this was
Not in
at
any
this
way.
point in time. This was going like way against type.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he's. I mean, we've seen him do more stuff.
Yeah.
But
Since
at the time, especially, we're talking. This is not too long after Interview with the Vampire. You
Yeah.
know, he was somewhat of a heartthrob-ish type,
Yeah.
and then he goes into this
He is
unstable.
not a heartthrob in 12 Monkeys.
Oh my God, no.
But man, yeah, it's just one of those that watching it the first time, I was just like completely just entranced with it, and it's just a gorgeous movie, very stylish, very bonkers, and the ending is one of those that like I didn't see it coming, but as soon as it happened, I was like, of course.
Yeah, of course that's how it
Of course
ends.
that's how it ends.
It all feels like it feels so perfect.
Yeah,
when you
Yeah.
get there.
yeah, it's just so great.
Well, and here's the thing I like about a 12 Monkeys, Jacob. And listen, I think my time travel film is the superior film to yours, and we'll get to it here in a minute. But here's the thing I love about 12 Monkeys, because I do agree it is one of the greatest time travel films ever made, hands down, bar none. I love how it has the tropes. I love how one of the tropes, for example, being that the time travel science is not exact and it's unstable.
Yeah.
So what that allows them to do is have a little bit of fun where like they're like, all right, Cole, Bruce Willis, we're going to send you back to 1994, and they miss it by like 6 months. So he gets there like 6 months early. The people aren't where they need to be at. And he's like, literally, he looks like a lunatic, which sets the premise of the movie. Cause he's like, well, it's pretty brilliant because it sets that he overshoots it, and he's in the wrong time, and he doesn't meet the right people. He can't even call the right phone numbers, and everyone thinks he's crazy. So he gets locked up. I guess I'm spoiling a little bit, but he gets locked up, and it just kind of frames the whole movie as, is this guy, did he actually time travel, or is he crazy?
Yeah.
And the entire time, you never know. He is a very unreliable narrator. And here's the thing. You rewatch it, you might, like the next time you watch it, you might be like, no, he's actually just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it's just as likely that, without saying any specifics, the things that happen actually happen, and it's really not totally clear.
Yeah.
They plant just enough both ways, and there's certain things that you're like, on both sides of it, you're like, well, clearly he is a crazy person, or clearly, I mean, this thing happened. This is not a coincidence, right? Time travel. Yeah. There's also a lot of nice nods to Hitchcock in that film that I like quite a bit, and I also just Brad Pitt. Yeah.
So good. There's also just a lot of like red herrings. Like they set up things that you think are going to be the big important thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it just totally, they'll spend a lot of time on that. And then all of a sudden there'll be this huge twist in the plot or in the characters or anything. And guys, it's so good.
It's really good.
So
it's a good twisty turvy movie.
I won't say anything about the plot. What I will say, another thing I really like about that film is how it uses the theme of context and relativity. I know that's a common theme I've mentioned like 5 or 6 times, but the way it does it, and they utilize it through the means of the movies. There's a point in the film where they're watching a movie, and Bruce Willis says, the movie always stays the same, but every time I watch it, it's different. Not because the movie changes, but because I change. And I think it puts into perspective both his character arc, but also you mentioned how there's a lot of red herrings, how a lot of times we don't have the full context for the thing we're looking at, and how the things that we look at, either forward looking or in the rear view mirror, if we don't have all the information, really, we kind of like project meaning onto these things, right? And so through the means of time travel, he's able to explore that theme both internally with himself, but also externally in the story. It's like, well, here's the things I got to do. This is how this is going to go down. And as he looks into it, it's like, wow, well, I thought this was important. It didn't matter. But this thing I discovered while I was along the way is actually super important. There's like lots of things like that. So I think there's, a lot of cool themes rolling in there too. So it's a very rich, layered. It's another one of those two I think you could probably watch like, 4 or 5 times before you finally feel like you're in a good spot on it.
It just gets better every time. Yeah.
So good.
12 Monkeys, ladies and gentlemen, check that out. Highly recommend. Zachary, is your film better than 12 Monkeys?
Obviously.
Well, good luck.
Yeah. Okay. My pick is a very me pick, but you're all just going to have to deal with it. So I have chosen Star Trek The Voyage Home. otherwise known as the one with the whales.
Yeah.
The one with the whales, and there's time travel in the same one with the whales?
Yes, because they have to time travel back in time to get the whales.
Save the
All
whales.
right. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's literally a Save the Whales movie.
Okay, I love it. Okay, elaborate more. Tell me more.
Okay, so
Buckle up, guys.
yeah, basically in the movie opens and there's this weird alien cylinder basically making its way through the solar system towards Earth, causing all kinds of havoc. And we're like, what are you doing, cylinder? And basically it reaches Earth. It's causing all kinds of chaos, mostly like with weather and things like that. And everybody on Earth is like, whoa, what's going on? This is not great. I don't like it. And then they finally discover that it's like transmitting this weird sound that no one can figure out what it is. And suddenly I think it's Spock is like, what does the sound like underwater? And so they do some fancy calculation stuff and throw some filters on it and listen to it, what it would sound like underwater. And it's like, oh, this sounds like whales. This sounds specifically like humpback whales.
Yeah. Well,
And
good
then
thing there's a lot of them around.
that's the issue is in this point in the Star Trek universe in the future, there are no more humpback whales. No, yeah, they're
You
gone.
mean they got-
we humans in the past hunted them out of extinction or
that's
into
awful.
extinction.
I can't believe that happened.
Right? Yeah. Can you believe it? Like us killing something like that. And so basically, it's figured out that in order to get some whales to answer the call of this weird alien cylinder, they have to go back in time, pick some up, and bring them back to the future with them.
I'm sure that's really easy, though.
Super easy. Just an in and out job.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's pretty difficult.
Huh.
Humpback whales are pretty big, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually kind of a hard thing to do to transport them hundreds of years into the future. But you know, good old Kirk and his crew, they actually do figure it out. But they have to, of course, first time travel back to what was at the time modern day San Francisco, which would have been like the mid 80s. So yeah, they travel back in time, and the way they do it, they pretty much just kind of gloss over it, like, oh, time travel, that's really easy.
Yeah.
They basically, I think, they just fly really fast around the sun, and boom, they're in the 1980s.
That's how I usually do it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think it's a pretty accepted.
I'm really glad
form of time travel.
This film was very committed to being realistic with the time travel.
Absolutely,
like
yeah.
the fact that it's hard to move a whale.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have just been lazy and said, "We just build a time machine to move the whale."
Right. Yeah. So I mean, they fly their. It's kind of a complicated story, but they're actually in a Klingon bird of prey. They're not in the Enterprise. It's There's some previous stuff in the previous movies that messed that up for them. So there's some kind of extra context that you kind of need to see the other movies for. But I mean, not a lot.
Yeah.
You just get it. They're in a Klingon ship. Okay, cool. We're on board.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they time travel their way back to 1980s San Francisco and are on the lookout for a couple humpback whales. Ideally, a male and a female, so then maybe they can repopulate humpback whales in the future. So yeah, that's the main basic premise of this adventure. But what's so fun about it, not just as a time travel movie, and not just as a Star Trek movie, but just as a movie in general, is it's actually just a fun movie.
Yeah.
Like, especially for, a big Star Trek action movie, there's actually no action in it. Like there's action, but more like in the fun way.
Yeah.
Like pretty much at no point in this entire movie is anybody's life in immediate danger. I don't think any of the characters even pick up a phaser throughout the entire movie. And certainly one is never fired in the entire movie, which I don't think you can say that about any other Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
And hardly even any Star Trek episodes. Which just makes it really makes this movie stick out from the Star Trek franchise, but also just movies in general, is that it's a time travel, but it's way more focused on just kind of the fun adventure of it.
Yeah.
And obviously it has a very nice message of we gotta like, we can't just dick around and kill all the whales and destroy our natural habitats.
It's almost like the message was, what if instead of like destroying stuff, we use the same amount of energy to save stuff?
Exactly. Yeah.
We can actually accomplish a lot of really cool stuff, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like saving whales. So that's why the movie is super great and a lot of fun. And another fun fact about my picks, I have my own theme, I guess, is this movie was written by Nicholas Meyer. He did not direct it because Leonard Nimoy himself directed it. And he knocked it out of the park, let me tell you.
Yeah, good for him.
But yeah, and I guess another thing, I guess I have another theme is they're both Time After Time and Star Trek The Voyage Home. They're both they both take place of people time traveling to what was at the time modern day.
Yeah.
But just from different directions. So Time After Time comes from the past up to present day, and Star Trek The Voyage Home comes from the future to present day.
Fish out of water stories.
Yeah, they're both fish out of water stories.
Fish out of water adventure stories.
Yes,
Zach,
exactly.
I've got your number.
Apparently that's my thing.
That's
that's my thing with time travel movies, I guess.
Yeah, the movie rules. And
it's great.
I always thought it did such a great job at making sure that core cast, all of them had something to do.
Mm-hmm.
While Kirk and Spock are more focused on the whales themselves, the other members of the team are trying to figure out, well, wait, where are we going to put these whales?
Yeah, like you were mentioning earlier, Caleb, like on how to actually transport these whales.
Yeah.
It's Scotty and good old Bones McCoy are on that task, trying to figure out how do we convert a space in this Klingon bird of prey to carry 2 fully grown humpback whales, plus all the water that they have to sit in, and all that good stuff. And then Uhura and Sulu and Chekhov, thank you. They are off on a thing. There's a technical aspect that they need to actually get. They like burned up a lot of power on the time travel trip there, so they're on a trip to get enough energy to make the trip forward again.
Yeah.
And that's where actually some of the trouble happens, like 'cause they need some nuclear power, which of course in the 1980s and even today, it's not something you can just walk up on the street and buy at the gas station. So they have to like sneak onto a Navy vessel, and like there's some trouble that happens there. But yeah, it's a great movie and a perfect Star Trek movie.
Yeah, it's so great. I love when Scotty's trying to talk to the computers because he's so used to it. In the future, you just talk to the computer and tell it to do things. But in 1980s San Francisco, that's not how you get a computer to do something.
There was no Siri yet.
Not yet.
It's so adorable. He just walks up to a computer. He's like, computer. Computer. And of course, it doesn't respond. And then Bones is with him, and he picks up the mouse, the computer mouse, and hands it to him. Like, this is the trick. And of course, we're thinking, he's gonna like use the manual mouse the way you're supposed to. But then he actually just like talks into the mouse as if it's an intercom, and he goes, "Hello, computer." It's such a great and silly joke, but I love it.
Yeah, the movie is so much fun.
It's perfect.
It's a joy. I think we could all use a little bit of that in the year 2020.
No joke.
Absolutely.
And I like how it's about humans overcoming problems rather than destroying things.
Yeah.
So, I think we could all use some of that this year, and highly recommend that as well.
Hell yeah.
Best time travel movie, Zach. I mean, I'm not going to give it too much flack here because, we all got our taste, but better than 12 Monkeys. Better than my pick for greatest time travel film of all time? No.
All right, bud. What's your pick then?
All right. So I thought very carefully about this one. So Here's kind of where I come down on this, and I'm totally about to majorly spoil a movie I love. So if you don't want the movie Arrival spoiled for you, just acknowledging it actually spoils it.
Yeah.
So a film that I love came out in 2016. That is from director Denny. Did he write the script for this? I don't know. No, he did
No,
not.
he
He did
didn't.
not.
No.
No, so
Eric.
it was Eric.
Harris-
Starts with an H. Yeah,
It's Robert Collins.
he is.
That's right.
I'm gonna cut that too.
Yep.
Director Denis Villeneuve, who is one of my favorite directors working today, hands down. He also did Blade Runner 2049. He also did Sicario. He also did Prisoners. He also did Enemy.
Yeah.
Like every man, talk about mindfuck from earlier.
Yeah,
Enemy.
no
Good
doubt.
grief.
He's about to do Dune.
He is about to do Dune.
2 movies.
Are they guaranteed for 2 movies?
I think it's a part 1 or part 2. That's what
I
I've
believe
heard.
so. Yeah.
Oh, guys, this is another podcast. In no way, we will talk about Dune when we finally get to see it in 2025. We will talk about
yeah.
this. I'm so excited for Dune, but I'm not confident that movie's going to make a lot of money. But I sure hope it does, because Dune is
Yeah.
so good.
Well, if
it's
people
so
are
good.
so starved for movies by the time it comes out,
Yeah,
maybe that'll
That
help.
might work in its favor.
So Denis Villeneuve, though, he's a director. He did a film called Arrival in 2016. And what I love about this stars Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. This is a film, basically these alien craft just show up and humans don't know what to make of it. So naturally, it's going kind of tying into what we were talking about the theme of the last movie, like problem solving versus blowing things up. Of course, basically, Amy Adams, the scientist, is that she's supposed to be communicating with these alien creatures, and basically holding military at bay, because like all these different militaries around the world are like, we have got these things surrounded with tanks and shit. We're gonna blow these guys up if they do anything that appears to be threatening, where Amy Adams is basically trying to stop that from happening, because she's like, well, there's a lot of things we don't know. Maybe there's more of them. They don't seem to be wanting to attack us. Maybe there's a lot we can learn. Typical kind of alien movie tropes. Much like many of the movies we've talked about on our greatest films, time travel films of all time, is none of these are just time travel. A time travel adventure, even with the Star Trek film. So I think this is really an alien invasion movie that's not really an alien invasion movie. The spoiler is, like, you don't find out until literally at the very end that it's actually a time travel movie. And essentially, Amy Adams receives this message from the future. It's that she learns how to interpret the aliens from the future, so she's able to pass a message to someone in the future. Gives her a very important message. Okay, I'm gonna back up here. The aliens give her consciousness the ability to shift through time, and because of this, an important person in the future delivers the key word, the key message that stopped the militaries from blowing up the alien crafts. Her consciousness shifts around, so she's able to receive the message and then take it back to the present. Now, that's kind of like on the surface read, right? And I think obviously I think the message that she receives is very emotionally powerful. But the thing I actually find even more powerful about this particular film is there's like these like flashes we see throughout the movie, and we really learn that it was actually things that were going to happen in the future, not the past. Like you kind of like the way they set it up, it feels like they're flashbacks.
Yeah.
To things that had already happened. Like she'd had a broken relationship and a child had died, all this stuff. Well, you find out that actually happens after it happens in between when she shifted her consciousness in time. And what I found really got to me is that she knows the pain that she is going to suffer in the years ahead of her, but she decides not to deviate or attempt to deviate, because the thing is all of the moments of love and beauty that she also experiences outweigh the sadness that she'll experience. And I just found that to be like one of the most raw human emotions I've ever seen used via the means of time travel in a lot of ways. Again, playing with relativity, we think we're looking at a flashback. It's actually, you're like, oh my gosh, tragic backstory. Oh no, this is going to happen. And now she knows it's going to happen, but she just does it anyway. And there's something I think that kind of really highlights just the bittersweet nature of life. That even the most beautiful things in life come at a cost at times of painful moments, and not a single person can predict what will happen to any one of us, and when those moments of sadness will occur or how they'll occur, but they will occur. But it's just part of the human experience, and it's a part of the human experience that we share together, because that's another big theme of the movie, is that humans really have to bond together to overcome like a self-destruct, like the self-destroying ourselves. They have to come together to keep ourselves from destroying ourselves, right? And she's able to bring about like this kind of appears to be like world peace almost sort of vibe thing, or at least at the time. So there is that really individual, the bittersweet nature of life on an individual level, but also on a grander scale. Like she still falls in love with someone that she knows she's going to fall out of love with, but she wants to share that experience with him. She has a child that she knows she may lose. She wants to experience that, right? So, wow, spoiled the heck out of that movie. Yeah. But please go watch Arrival. It is one of the best films of the last decade. And I think it got a lot of love. I think it got a lot of positive critical reception. I think everyone who's seen it generally likes it, but it is just one of those I think I will always remember and cherish and go back to. And I will say this also came out. I saw this for the first time right before the 2016 election, and saw it. I watched it, I think, about 3 days after the election, and it really again just highlights the fragility and kind of the bittersweet nature of life, and something about it was also oddly comforting because you just helps you accept that this is a part of the experience, and with every awful thing that happens, there are also beautiful things on the horizon, and all of that is made possible through time travel.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
so back together.
Oh man, hope that wasn't too crazy of a rant for you guys. Hope there's no tissues, and you can put that in your pocket, Zach. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's take this home on a lighter note, though. So I also wanted us to all pick out some of our favorite bad time travel movies, and I'm not saying we're not here to dogpile on the movies. No. I think there's a lot of negativity. Well, just in the world right now, but on the internet especially. So let's be fair. Let's play fun. What are the movies that are bad? And when I mean bad is they could either be bad movies that are really smart with how they deploy time travel, or they could be good movies that the time travel doesn't actually make any sense, not even at face value, or the movie blatantly disrespects and disregards rules it's set up earlier in the film. So those are a couple of examples, and I'll actually kick us off. So we've mentioned H.G. Wells earlier. Mm-hmm. I am a big fan of that novel, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Mm-hmm. I am a big fan of the Time Machine from the 1960s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I am also a fan of the time travel movie from the early aughts. I think it was like either 2001, 2002, starring Guy Pearce.
Yes. Oh yeah,
The Time Machine.
My boy.
Firstly, again, Guy Pearce, just a talent I love to see at any point. And guys, this movie's really terrible. It's so bad.
Great.
It's awful. I just watched this with my girlfriend sometime in the last year, a nebulous point. Feels like 10 years ago at this point. But we watched it, and I was like, wow, this is a truly bad, like there's a scene where they get mugged in the park, and I was like, what is going on? The guy's dialogue is awkward. He doesn't look menacing. The whole thing's just like really awkward. It's like they all knew they were in a movie for a second. I don't know. And again, Guy Pearce, great actor, but I don't know. It looks cheap. When they get to the future, it looks like there's a lot of really cheap effects there. But you want to know why I picked this movie as my kind of favorite bad time travel movie? And it's because there are 3 or 4 moments in this movie that I just won't forget. I just can't forget. Like, they're just like, wow, that's a really cool image or a cool way to use time travel. There's a scene in particular. So the way the whole time travel is done, it's like the time machine doesn't actually move. It's very stationary, and Guy Pearce goes and sits on it. He turns it on, and he can speed it up, slow it down. And so he's kind of going at like a cruising speed for a while, where he can kind of see things are changing. so you as the audience are able to also see. So like, for example, they do a fun thing with women's clothing. Like he's able to see like the store shop windows and like see how the women's fashion changes and the skirts get shorter and shorter, and you're like, okay, I see what you're doing there. But then there's a few times he's like, oh, this looks kind of crazy. I'm gonna slow down and check it out, which is always a bad idea. But there's one point where I think it's the moon landing. They're like, oh my, he slows down and he talks to people like, oh my gosh, we landed on the moon. It's so cool. And you're like, oh, that's kind of a neat little moment. And they're like, we're going to build colonies on the moon. It's going to be awesome. And then he jumps ahead. And the thing is, I can't remember exactly what the year count is, but it's a few hundred years ahead. You see that they not only colonized the moon, but they dug too deep, and the moon is now cracked in half, and moon rocks are crashing into cities, wiping out civilization. And you're like, well, that didn't turn out so well, I guess. Yeah, so those are a couple of examples of just like ways the imagery around the specifics of time travel. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
The second half of this film, where he actually lands on a destination in the distant future, is kind of really awful. like they actually swapped directors midway through production on this film, which is always a good sign.
Always.
And there's characters that weren't in the novel, which is not a deal breaker for me by any means, but they try to like the kind of the creatures, they try to turn them into a hive mind. Anyway, it's not very good. Guy Pearce, Time Machine, I think it was 2001, 2002. If you're looking for something to turn on just to have on the background, or if you're morbidly curious, I say watch it. It's a fun time. It is a fun time.
Man.
That is all you need.
Jacob, what is your favorite bad time travel film?
I'm going to say Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
There it is.
I won $90 billion.
Yeah, that movie. I probably prefer the first Austin Powers movie, but it's maybe not time travel-y enough. I guess he goes forward in time, but it's kind of that question we were asking earlier.
Yeah,
just because he's frozen,
does that count?
Does that count? But either way,
yeah,
Spy Who Shagged Me is also great.
It's a hoot.
It is, yeah, it's a hoot. It's, there's time travel. They travel back in time. We see Dr. Evil and the younger versions of his with Rob Lowe as number 2.
Yeah.
Who was number 2 working for?
Yeah.
And yeah, guys, it's just goofy. It's just so much fun. And like goofy. Just the whole like overly stylized, like I love James Bond movies. So anything that lovingly plays with the tropes of the James Bond movies and then really plays up the 60s, and it's just I don't know, guys. It's fun.
I mean, the Austin Powers movies, I haven't seen them in a while, and I had never really seriously thought about rewatching them. But you know what? I've got some fond memories.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of iconic jokes from Austin Powers movies. Now, they haven't really been iconic in a while, but at the time...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's just so many memorable jokes. My favorite was always like the, well, there's a couple. The one being like where they place the items in front of, the body parts thing. And they're always really clever with it. Yeah. That's always fantastic. That's pretty good. I also like the gag where they would never say, like boobs or whatever. They would come up with the
it was penis.
Yeah.
And
they say, peanuts, get your peanuts. Oh, wow, that's quite a wiener. You want to eat this nice fancy hot dog wiener. They work at it. I always thought those were two of my favorite kind of gags from those movies. And it worked really well for, I think, all 3 of them, if I recall correctly. So, interesting pick. Good pick.
Yeah. And of course, you got Mini-Me introduced in the second one. It's okay to just have fun sometimes.
Yeah. Fun's good. Fun's good.
Absolutely.
Zach, on that note, bring us home.
So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really plan to answer this question, so I'm coming up with something off the top of my head.
Hear it.
So I'm actually gonna roll it back to, you remember that Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie we were just talking about?
That ending, I still don't. I've spent a great amount of time thinking about that ending, and it still doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense.
So, So, have you guys read the book at all? the original Planet of the Apes book?
No, I haven't read the book.
So it's interesting because the ending of the Tim Burton one is closer to the book
Yeah.
than the original movie.
Fascinating.
But the major difference, and I think this is the thing that throws people off, is there's not the giant statue of it, because it's not just an ape Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
It's specifically
Yeah.
the bad guy that he had been fighting on
Right.
in the other planet.
Yeah.
So in the book, sorry to spoil it, but it's basically the same thing. He escapes the planet or whatever,
Mhm.
and lands on this new planet and thinks he's like, he basically gets out of his spaceship and he's like, oh my God, you guys are not gonna believe what just happened to me.
Yeah.
And as the people get closer, he realizes they're also apes.
Yeah.
And that's in the book.
That's funny.
That's hilarious.
There's no escape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but yeah, it's interesting.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. But yes, it makes no sense.
But yeah, it makes absolutely no sense, especially in the context of the movie, and it being the Tim Roth ape that he just spent the entire movie fighting.
Yeah.
Like how is he now the ape Abe Lincoln?
Well, and then of course in Planet of the Apes, the original movie, like he doesn't get on a ship and fly away. He's on the same planet, and he just discovers that happens to be Earth. Versus the Tim Burton one, where you literally see him get in a spaceship and fly away to Earth. And it's, I mean, I guess I understand there's like a time vortex thingamajig, but did he travel so far? He would travel so far in the future that apes have taken over and evolved to be at the point of humans. That I totally get. The point I don't get is how it's like exactly the Washington Memorial with like all the monuments are the same except there's apes. Like they evolved the exact same way, which I guess if you're looking at multiverse, which is something we haven't even talked about on this show, which is a whole other thing that theoretically in the multiverse that could happen, but that's I don't know. That's just not really set up in that movie at all.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I think visually it's like, oh wait, holy crap, like we're in modern day but everybody's an ape and the Lincoln Memorial is now an ape, like visually that's like really cool idea. But it's also like just in the context of the movie, like where does this come from?
Yeah, I think they were like, I'm sure when they like sat down to write that movie, they're like, we've got to come up with something crazier than the original.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do not envy them trying to remake Planet of the Apes, like an iconic, perfect movie.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think that's what makes like the new trilogy so good too, is they basically purposely didn't do that. They didn't try to top those movies. They just tried to make their own new thing.
Yeah.
That, you know, kind of works within those, but is also just very much its own series. But it's crazy.
It is. It really came. I think it really comes down to the first time you probably saw it. It was highly effective, but like you're walking out of the theater, you're getting in your car, and you're like, "Man, what an ending! That was crazy." And then you drink. You're driving, and you're thinking about it, and you're like, "Wait, how did this doesn't work?" Wait, and then you're laying in bed, and you're like, now I'm thinking more about how it doesn't work, and I'm frustrated. And then you wake up the next morning, you're like, you know what? I don't know if this was a great movie or not. But in the moment, the visceral vibes you got from that, I'm sure if you'd seen that in the theater, it would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
I did see it in the theater. Yeah.
Yeah. It just goes like the difference. Like you can't just throw twists in there just to be a twist.
Yeah.
Like it's got to make sense.
That's why to make some kind of sense.
That's why the original ending of the original one is so great, because it is a shock.
Yeah.
But it's so set up throughout the whole movie.
Absolutely.
That it's one of those things, like the shock, but also when you step back, you go, well, of course.
Yeah, like there's no other way it could have ended.
Yeah.
Because that's what the movie was setting up the whole time. You just didn't know you were being set up for that.
Yeah.
Which is what makes rewatching the original great, because then you're like, they're setting it up right in front of me.
Yeah.
You know, you can track that a lot more in like the things you see and the things the characters say.
Yeah. I think that's something we didn't really talk about so much with time travel movies. It's just like how rewatchable they are.
Like
I said, even the bad ones are kind of fun to watch again, just to see how they set up something or didn't set up something. And like maybe that's part of the attraction of them, is that like they truly are movies if they're done well. That you're gonna get something new every time you watch it.
Yeah. Time travel movies, again, when implemented effectively and implemented well, I think I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Really reward rewatches.
Yeah.
Unless they're 3 hours long, like Avengers Endgame. You still watch it over and over again, but in bite-sized chunks. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So thanks so much for tuning into that element. We are going to do, I think, a quickly talk about maybe a few runner-ups that didn't quite make our cuts. So Avengers Endgame, throwing that in there. That's recent. I love how it actually pokes fun at all the time travel. And in fact, I still think one of my favorite lines in the movie from, I think it's Paul Rudd, says, wait, you're saying Back to the Future is all bullshit?
Paul Rudd in that movie is a gem.
Time heist. I think, just I'm sure we want to move on quickly, but what I liked about Endgame was that we all went into it assuming it was going to have to do with time travel, but I think we all assumed they were going to go back in time to stop what had happened. And I did really I thought they were really clever in making it more of the heist movie, a time heist, if you will, and how it wasn't about going back and preventing this thing that was happened. It was more of this thing happened and it's not fixable, but we can at least
you can make it right.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was really clever.
Yeah.
That, gonna use my words carefully, is not too far off from the 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Again, not the time and heist element, but the idea that, and I think this is actually how a lot of movies, so 12 Monkeys is an example, Avengers Endgame is an example, but like when you think about the string theory, again, I'm not going to go too far in the weeds, but like the ones where you live in those realities where whatever happened. I think a lot of times that's what the characters figure out. They're like, I'm going to try to fix this thing. I'm going to go back and stop this thing. And they figure out I can't, for whatever reason, whether it's science, whether it's magic, whether it's like their own character flaws, I can't do this thing. But what I can do is make the future I came from better by taking this information or taking this plot device or taking XYZ from the past, which again, I think really is a really good lesson about like, hey, as much as sometimes we might wish we could go back and do this day over again or do this year over again, like at the end of the day, the things that happen in our real world, in our real lives, they happen. The best way is to look back and learn from your mistakes, take what you learn and apply it to the future to make for a better tomorrow.
Let's do that.
All right, let's do it.
Why not?
Anyway, sorry. I'm all about the optimism and problem solving time travel, which also plays into the Star Trek time travel as well. So, great nod on Avengers Endgame, Jacob. Of course, I'm going to mention another one of my favorite superhero time travel films, which is X-Men Days of Future Past. I know that the director is somewhat controversial right now, but you know what? I still really like the X-Men movies, most of them. I like them because they are a lot different than the other MCU movies. And I think I like about Days of Future Past, without getting too in the weeds, is there's not really if you go back and watch that, there's really not an actual bad guy. There is Bolivar Trask, who is building these robots that will kill the mutants. So obviously he's a bigot and they're trying to stop him from completing his plan. But really, like, the thing is, like, Magneto and Mystique are just as much the villain as Bolivar Trask is. Like, because based off of how the time travel works in that movie, like, them committing this act to stop this horrible person from doing this thing really escalates the horror. And at the end of the day, the thing that they're trying to fight, like the Sentinels that represent kind of this like tour de force extinction for mutants, and really it appears the human race, because that whole world looks pretty sad, is just a product of people who are different, unwilling to live together, right? Like, so Mystique and Magneto do not want to live in the same world as Bolivar Trask, and that feeling's mutual. And because they can't get along, it creates problems in the future that ultimately leads to the destruction of the entire race, right? Yeah. So I like that. A lot of people hate that. I mean, and there are still those over-the-top comic book elements. I mean, you still have Sentinels in there. So it's got all those elements, but a lot of people, I remember, were kind of critical. They're like, it's kind of a weak bad guy. I'm like, no, that's actually, I sometimes agree with you on that, but this is actually kind of the point of the movie. They're saying is like, characters have to make selfless decisions that help people they don't like in order to prevent the awful thing from happening. And again, I think it's all about like working together and humans and everyone working together so we can make a better world. Anyway, it's also super fun. They also have lots of fun with the time shenanigans. It also has the first class cast of James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence interacting with Hugh Jackman, which was on my, like, I really want this in an X-Men film before Hugh Jackman retires, and they gave it to us. So
got it in there.
I got it. it was made for me. It's made for me. Truthfully, like when it came out, I was like, they checked all my boxes that I wanted. Time travel, X-Men. Okay, anyway, so that's another kind of fun one. I don't know. I have a couple more, but I wanted to give you guys a chance. Are there any others that we haven't given a shout out to that you want to nod at?
Yeah, I'd like to throw out a nod to another Terry Gilliam movie, Time Bandits.
Heyo. Now we're talking.
That one is another really fun one with a very shockingly dark ending.
A Terry Gilliam with the movie with the dark ending.
Can't believe it. What?
And then, what else? This one's a little different. You might not like it, but it's an underseen indie film that I think more people should see. It's called Sound of My Voice. And it is about these people who are trying to infiltrate. There's this cult led by a woman played by Britt Marling. And she claims to be from the future. And she's kind of building this cult of people. So this guy infiltrates it to learn more and see if this is going to be something that grows into something dangerous. And it becomes a very big question as to whether maybe she is actually from the future or is she just crazy? And that's kind of what the whole movie is about, and how this guy is kind of lured into this and whether he believes it or not. So definitely huge recommend for that.
Sure.
And
it's another trope we didn't really talk about, like the whole, like, this person says they're from the future. I mean, we get a little bit of that with 12 Monkeys, but like, that's actually another very popular trope that's a lot of fun sometimes. Like are they from the future or are they crazy?
Yeah.
But like when you're witnessing it from someone else's perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Zach, anything to add there?
Well, Sound of My Voice is great. Everyone should watch it. It's one of those movies that you're watching and you're like, this is really good. And then it gets to a certain scene and you're like, oh, this is really good.
Really good.
So yeah, that movie's great. I'd also like to, of course, me being me, I have to point out another Star Trek movie that has time travel, and that's Star Trek First Contact, which is another one of the best Star Trek movies of all time. This is with the Next Generation cast, directed by Jonathan Frakes himself.
Yes.
Commander Riker. And that movie rules.
It's got the Borg.
It's probably the Star Trek thing that really made the Borg the Borg. Like, obviously, they were in a lot of Next Gen episodes, and there's some stuff there, but probably this is the movie that made them like super iconic.
Yeah.
And then definitely heavily influenced. Star Trek Voyager was the show that was on at the time, and after that movie came out, suddenly the Borg were a big part of the Voyager show.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Which was great because those episodes are great in Voyager, but Star Trek First Contact is great. It's another one of those, it's just like, it doesn't worry about the mechanics of the time travel at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, they do it, and they have to go back and stop the Borg from messing up our human past, which is still in the context of Star Trek. It's still our future. Yeah. From our perspective, me right now, but to Star Trek characters' perspective, it's their past. But yeah, it's great. It's just a great Star Trek movie. It's a great movie in general. It's one of the best Star Trek movies for sure.
It's a great like expansion of the like best of both worlds episodes of Next Gen.
Yes.
Because it really takes the Picard character in interesting, very closely and very overtly references like Moby Dick and how the Borg are basically his great white whale.
Yeah, whales. We're back to whales.
Lots of whale talk.
Wait, is this the one with the whales?
They talk about Moby Dick, so it's kind of. But yeah, Star Trek First Contact is great, and yeah, it definitely expands on the iconic two-parter of the Next Gen show, the best of both worlds, where Captain Picard is captured by the Borg and assimilated and becomes Locutus. And oh man, that is a two-parter of two-parters, my friend.
Great
like,
TV.
That cliffhanger from one episode to the other is like, I can't imagine being there when it happened.
Yeah.
Because it was literally the end of the season was the first of the two-parter episodes, so you had to wait until the entire next season to see the conclusion. And boy, that cliffhanger it ends on is just like, it's intense.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, like you need to watch it.
It's great.
There's a lot of homework coming out of this episode, guys.
Oh yeah.
Just watch all the Star Trek.
All worth it.
Watch all the Star Trek.
Honestly, yeah, watch all Star Trek. It's great.
I know you guys aren't as enthusiastic about the new 2009 Star Trek films. I have mixed feelings about them, but I did think the first 2009 Star Trek,
one's
starring
good.
Chris Pine. Yeah, I know. I think that's a great movie. A really clever use of time travel. I think more clever in the larger meta narrative of Star Trek.
Yeah.
A really good way of saying everything you watch still matters, but we're also gonna reboot it at the same time.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was a very clever way of doing that.
It's pretty smart. A good way to have your cake and eat it too. But also, it really isn't. Time travel obviously factors majorly into that movie. Like it's a big element, but I never, like, my first takeaway from that movie wasn't I just watched a time travel film.
Yeah.
It's really I just watched a Star Trek film that happens to use that mechanic a couple of times.
Yeah.
But the couple times it uses it, it's huge. Like,
Yeah.
sets the stage for the entire movie. Kind of like Terminator, I guess I would say.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I will give another shout out. Gotta say, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Of course.
So much fun. How have we not talked about that yet?
I know that nearly cracked one of my runner-ups. It very nearly did. Gosh,
and there's a new
and-
one coming out. That's incredible.
There is, they just confirmed it's going to be available on demand, so we can actually watch it if we don't go to theaters, which is. It's kind of sad, but also exciting because I think it actually is a good movie to watch. It seems like a good film that would play well at
it
home.
seems like it would be a great theater movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do both. I think it works. It would be better in the theater though. To watch that in a whole audience full of Bill and Ted fans, okay,
that would be great.
Just like everything else, it will work at home, but it would be a lot better on the big screen theater.
We'll make it work.
But yeah, I'm super excited about that. I think that's really clever. I actually first watched that in my high school history class, and my history teacher did lessons around each one of the people they pull.
That's
Freud and who else was it? It was Freud, Abe Lincoln, Gandhi. Did they take Gandhi? Was that one of the people they kidnapped?
Oh, it's been so long.
Yeah, me too.
Sure.
It was all the historical figures they had pulled out that we did different lessons on, and we'd watch it in the context of the movie. He's like, look, they followed the history here, and here, and it was.
See, that sounds like a great teacher.
He was.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to incorporate that a great movie into your teaching lessons.
Yeah.
I think I also watched Bill and Ted in high school, but it was for Spanish class, and it was not. They did not teach us lessons off of that. It was just we're just gonna watch Bill and Ted today, and that's what we're doing.
Substitute.
I mean,
teacher.
no complaining to me.
Class, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't complain, but yeah.
You take it where you can get it. Bill
Yeah.
and Ted's Excellent Adventure, clearly a movie you play in high school, I guess.
I guess so.
It was fun, and also they do. I kind of want to watch it again because if I recall, the time travel makes no sense, and they point out several times that they're like, "Oh, no worries, we'll just go and send them back." Kind of, I don't know. I need to watch it again. I remember feeling like that doesn't make any sense, and they're kind of explaining it in a very Bill and Ted way. That they're like, "Well, obviously this doesn't make any sense, but we're gonna say it does."
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's fun. It's fun.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, there's also a Shane Carruth movie. I'm not going to talk about Shane Carruth much on the air, though, but there is one that people tend to like. You can look it up. And if you're not sure why we're not talking about it, you should go check Film Twitter or the Film News. There's a lot of not great people that I respect the work of that unfortunately. So anyway, I just have to give that a shout out because there's probably some film fans that they're like, well, how have you not mentioned this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that, man, we've talked for 2 hours about time travel films.
Man.
This has been a fun
We
conversation.
could talk some more.
We could go in depth.
Army of Darkness. Sorry.
Ooh.
Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of a time travel movie.
Big kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We are out of time, but we have to, of course, before we close out today, we've talked about some great time travel films today. And as I've already said, the greatest time travel film is the one we haven't seen. And it could be available to you on August 6th, video on demand. Coming to an Xbox, maybe a PlayStation, we're not sure, and Amazon near you.
Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shifter. So we're going to say one time, Shifter, you can stream it on demand on August 6th. We have talked at length in several past episodes about Shifter. I think this is like the 7th time we've talked about it.
Yeah.
So So there's not probably a ton that can be said that has not already been said on this podcast about Shifter, except that you should go see it. So is there anything, Jacob or Zach, you would like to tease listeners with now that literally years of us talking about this film, people will be able to see it?
Yeah.
What would you like to say to those people? We have made it to the moment where they have their opportunity to watch Shifter. What say you?
Yeah, I think all that I have to say at this point is please watch it. Please watch it. Please go buy my movie. Yeah, no, a lot of amazing people over the years, over the last couple of years, have put in a ton of hard work, shared their time and talent with the movie. And it's just really incredible that we've been very fortunate that Horror Collective acquired it and is doing such a great job of putting it out there and getting it available for people. This year definitely was very different than what we thought this year was going to be. And we're just so grateful that that while this wasn't our original plan, I think this is maybe in some ways better than our original plan. I think it's really turning out really great for the movie. And yeah, I'm excited for people to see it. It's definitely it's time travel, but it's also, we tried to play with the rules and tried to take it from a different approach. I think it's probably very different than any of the time travel movies that we mentioned today. So yeah, I'm interested to see what people think of it. I hope they like it.
Please watch it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's called Shifter, if you missed it. And last note there, guys, it's been such a pleasure over the last 2-ish years talking about Shifter with you guys. We've listeners, if you want to go back and hear the history of the making of the film, we'll have all of our Shifter audio diary series linked in the show notes below. There's several episodes where we're talking with Jacob and Zach in the pre-production phases, the casting phases, the set location phases, and then we catch up with you guys after your production, which is broken into 2 different parts, kind of get your take there. And then more recently, we talked about your plans to release the film at CineQuest right in the midst of a global pandemic. And then we talked with you guys when you're able to bring that film back home in June to the Dead Center Film Festival, to kind of the hometown Oklahoma City. So it's been an incredible journey just talking with you guys and seeing the film, just the whole story, seeing you guys work really hard, seeing you guys pour your blood, sweat, and tears into raising that money, which I know is a huge undertaking, and then seeing you guys execute the film, and then even helping you guys out with the audio commentary. Lots of fun. It's been a real pleasure, been a real ride, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about with your next film, whatever the case may be there. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for letting me be a part of your journey there, and the Cinemetropolis and Schematic being a part of that as well. It's been a real pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please go check out Shifter. It's available August 6th on demand, and we will catch you all again next time.